In another episode of our Founders series, we will talk with Jakob Løkkegaard. He is a successful manager from Denmark and manages a lot of really interesting bands. I didn't believe in him the first time I met him. I have changed my mind. Follow along for his story. Jakob, welcome to Sound Connections all the way from Denmark. We have known each other for a few years. You're based in Copenhagen?
Yeah.
Yeah. I met you the first time a few years ago when I was young and you were equally as young. I think we were around the same age, where you were trying to start a management company. You've been going on for a few years. And I've been following you for 5 years' time and really figuring out that you're actually doing a really good job. You position yourself really well in the industry. And right now we're doing a series on the podcast about founders. So we're going to have a talk about your company and your journey and being a bit personal and learn from that. I remember the first time I met you, I was actually working with an artist that will remain unnamed, that was really talented. And I think there was a brief talk about maybe a management deal. And I remember I had a meeting with you and I was like, who is this guy? And I was a bit maybe overly skeptic that I believe maybe I, on that artist's behalf, maybe regret a bit, because I think maybe that could have been a really good match. Yeah. But could you tell about yourself and your journey into what is now W.A.S Entertainment?
Yeah. Well, I guess when we met around, that was 2018, 2019, I guess, I had just really started my own company called Suburban Management and Consulting, I think was the formal name. Yeah, and I have a background playing as a musician myself. Played in several very cool, unsuccessful indie rock bands, like between 2010 and up until like 2015, I guess. And yeah, I started out actually managing my own band, like perhaps many others have done before me. We were signed to a Danish major label, was set to release our debut album, and I thought, like, this is going to be huge. Let's just like see you at the red carpet. But I quite quickly discovered that getting a quite big major label deal in Denmark wasn't necessarily enough for you to like just make it in the music industry, unfortunately. So I kind of found out that there was like a lot of more elements that you needed to be aware of to actually have a successful artist career. So I started managing my own band, and then we had like a rehearsal space in the suburbs. That's why I called it Suburban Management. And some of my friends' bands were like also there recording, rehearsing, and I started managing them. A couple of bands from there. Very like limited what I actually did, but we were hanging out a lot, and I was like the only one who were able to use your calendar. So I got that was like my job. And one of the bands at some point had like quite a small success. I think it was around 2017. And then I thought to myself, it would be fun for me to try managing bands and artists who were not friends of mine. Sure. Just to like see if this was actually something that I could do. And I signed a couple of bands like that was like 2017, 2018, maybe just before we met. And then it's such a long journey, even though it's only like 5 years, but there's happened so many things. But I think, so I was doing management, and one of the first book, like the manager's playbook, is like to try to get your artist signed to a record label. I wasn't really, I couldn't do that. Maybe because some of the things I was working on back then was quite niche and like alternative guitar driven, which certainly not was like charting back then, still isn't. So we needed to release music. So I discovered a way how to just make a label imprint under like the management company.
Yeah.
That company was called W.A.S Suburban, and that went on for also a couple of years until I became really busy and decided to team up actually with one of my very old friends, Matthias, who I went to high school with, and Hisham Maroon, who was just finishing his law degree back then, because I needed help. Really, I was like really stressed and had quite an amount of success, but it was like way too much work. So, in order to maintain like my own stress levels, but also trying to build something that was sustainable, we joined forces and formed W.A.S Entertainment in the end of 2019, so just before the pandemic, actually.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's so interesting. Like, what was your how were you met by the industry about you trying to make this management? Did you get a reaction from people in general?
No, people didn't really give a fuck. No, not at all. I think as you also, like, when you started, you told me that when you met me, around 2018 or something like that, you were overly skeptical. I think that's a very natural way of like acting in this industry, being a bit skeptical, also because like people might like, you need to prove yourself, or at least that's like the way other people sees it, and I think so many people start something up and call themselves, for instance, managers, artist managers, or publishers, or what they call themselves, and things seems to like fizz out after like a year or something like that. So no, when I started, I had not really any network in the industry besides musicians. So no, I had a really, really hard time of creating a network for myself, like establishing my name. And that started to happen when some of my artists became not commercially successful, but at least like getting recognition. Then my name started to grow as well, and the company's name started to grow as well. But there's not really not that much help to get as a young startup in the music industry, at least not in Denmark.
No, that's definitely also something I've met a lot, and through my own journeys. But you decided to take in some partners. Yeah. Did they have any, let's call it, connection or respect in the music industry, or were they equally, well, at that point you were established a bit, but were they also like totally new into the industry?
Yeah, I was definitely like the most established, I think. Matthias, like my old friend, he was educated from the conservatory as a sound technician. And the reason why he joined me was that he was producing all the records that I was working on. So at one point I became quite tired of paying him salary to produce records. And so I convinced him into like, because we didn't have any money. So like the initial business strategy was to like me finding the talent and like building the strategy, him producing and mixing and mastering
everything.
And then it's just doing everything by ourselves, because we didn't have any money. So that was a way of like keeping the cost down and just trying to get artist names out there. And Hisham, who was like finishing his law degree, had absolutely no experience in the industry. He went to like preschool, like school with my wife, and he wrote me like on Facebook, like the most when you read it back, like when you read it again now, it's really fun message, but like he had no idea at all about what he was doing. But I thought that, because at least back then, I considered myself as like more of a creative type, And Matthias is definitely also like of the more creative type. So I thought it would make sense to have someone on board who like the more like being like the administration. And I thought, well, yeah, a lawyer, that might be a good idea. So he joined as well. Yeah, and then yeah, we're still yeah.
How did you guys survive? Did you have like side jobs, or was this like your full on?
The first the first year we made no money basically. So I think I had a job. I had a job like in a audiobook recording studio, where I was monitoring the computers whilst people were like recording the books. So if anything happened with the computer, like if it went in shutdown mode, then I had to restart the computer. So that was a very nice job because I could just sit with my laptop and work like the company business. And then like once or twice a day, I had to get up and like turn on a computer. So that was like part-time or something like that. Yeah. But we didn't actually, it was like, I think the 1st of January was the first time we actually got how can you say it, a real grown-up salary. Up until then, we've paid. We've had a lot of employees, so they got paid obviously. But the 3 founders, we've just been, yeah. I think the last like year and a half, like in 2022, we were like on 17,000 kroner a month wage, but like by the end of the month, then there was no money left when we had paid our employees. Then we had to go off salary. So we did that, yeah, for like 1.5 years. So no, it's been very on off, and it has definitely not been financially secure.
No.
Anyways. No.
That's a really interesting thing, and I think we'll come back to that later in the podcast about the finance side of it. And I don't know how much you're willing to share, but there's also been some, as far as I know, like some movements in like some other partners getting in.
Yeah.
But one of the things you mentioned is, you know, the lack of access to information or knowing what to do. Like, how did you learn what steps to take? Was it just trial and error, or did you have people around you that helped you learn? Or like, what was the situation for you guys?
I think it was a lot of trial and error, which I think it should be, like the only way to actually, especially in this industry where, you know, no artist career path is the same. So I think the only way to really get into it is just to try things out and learn from your mistakes. And no, I didn't really have any mentors, unfortunately. There were some other like independent music companies which I kind of looked up to, and I tried to get involved like in the independent record label, what do you call it? Dupe, I think it's called.
Yeah, sure.
And like some of those organizations to try to get some knowledge, but no. I think because this is it's a very competitive industry as well. People are not that willing to necessarily share their own experience and like because I don't know, it might just be because it's so highly competitive. But maybe I've just been bad at asking for help. But to be honest, I've thought we've been doing this quite in our own way. Which I'm proud of, and which I also believe is one of the reasons why it's been a good journey so far.
That makes sense.
Right.
I have I think a relatively interesting question, because as a manager, you of course, a lot of your focus is on money. And then you also said a few minutes ago, you know, that, you know, money has been very scarce and sometimes nothing. When you've been working with, you know, let's say clients or artists, whatever, has there sometimes come up the the opinion that, oh, you guys are just greedy in a way, like, you know, you guys want money for yourself. What's the relationship with your clients and money been? And how has your own storytelling been with, you know, I actually don't make any money? Has that been a storytelling, or what's the dynamic been there?
I think when an artist becomes more successful, not necessarily in a I make a lot of money, but like when things start to go well, they become more aware of the percentage of their money that you actually make, and the work that you do to earn them. But like starting out, this was not an issue because nobody made any money, and but like because we've like always been hiring more staff, like whilst growing, I think our artists could see that like the money that we did earn were actually reinvested in some ways, in staff that could benefit their career. So I think that way we were kind of avoiding that issue. But yeah, as soon as an artist figures out that money is there to be made, they become more aware of the work that we do. Yeah.
But has it been hard for you to talk about? Has there been like a sore point in management, or what's your experience with it?
No, not really, because like up until recently, we like Mathias, Hisham, and I didn't make really any money, so it was kind of easy for me to say, you know, yeah, I'm sorry to hear that you don't make any money, but you need to know that I don't either. So we're just like trying to get this, like get your career forward, because in that way we're all happy. So I think that was kind of like just being really honest.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think you know, when you're very honest about your own position, then it's just easier that way. And it just so I've from the beginning been quite honest about my our financial position as a company as well, just to avoid anything. And you know, so I think
that makes sense.
Being honest makes sense when you're doing this.
Yeah. So you started growing a team, but what was the success that made that possible? Did you have a certain amount of artists that started like playing a lot of live? What was the turning point for finances there?
Yeah, I think some of our artists gained. We had like one or two, like from 2020 onwards, we had quite some success on the radio, on songs that we had the masters for. So that's money. And also, those artists started playing live. Also in Denmark, like because at that time we were doing all product management, all video, social media, everything, graphics in-house as well. So we had kind of a good, not a good, but a solid business foundation where we could like fundraise some of the money, and then it was very much like 50% of our earnings came from fundraising and 50% came from like commercial revenue in some way. So that was kind of how we made it work. This combined with Hisham, Mathias, and I not paying out any salary, but also like being a very young company in the music industry, like you are able to get people to work in your company for not that much money, and the fun thing is that like some of like the staff that are still here has been there from like the beginning almost. So people have like stayed and have been growing also in salary up until now. So I think it's been quite sustainable in that way.
Yeah. One of the things that's really maybe weird for outsiders to see is like you guys have had a lot of success with some of your really recent bands like W.A.S. That's been, you know, I haven't been living in Denmark in the time they've blown up, but like I've been following from the sidelines. They've you know, they're huge. So there's also the illusion from the outside, like the management represents you guys, you know, must be cashing in like crazy. But do you meet that sort of misunderstanding through friends and family that's, you know, watching you guys grow?
Yeah, I think people believe that as soon as you have a song on the radio, you must be earning big bucks.
Yeah.
Um, that's obviously completely misunderstood. Um, but yeah, I think when because we've had and that's kind of been one of the fun things for me to experience, because we've had quite a lot of artists who have been played a lot on the radio, played like the tastemaker festivals, but not really making it like on real commercial terms before Blist. And it's been quite fun for me also to find out like how much it actually takes, like how big an artist needs to grow before you and the artist as well makes real money. So yeah, right now, yeah, I think like my friends and family thinks that like we're just cashing in all the time. But to be honest, like I think Bliss have had like success for like 1.5 year, and we've had like just finished the first big festival season, which was a huge investment year. So to be honest, like yeah, we do make some money on this band now, but it's not that much. It's gonna be a lot more in the future, hopefully. But it takes time.
Yeah.
It really takes time, and you really need to hit it on the big stage before it's actual money. Yeah.
But what's your emotions towards that? You know, the patience you need to possess and the sacrifice you need to sacrifice in order to build this. Like, you know, you guys, as you say, now you have a band that's, you know, hugely successful, and you're like 5 years in, and you're still not like, at least on own terms, like there yet. Are you okay? Can you like how do you do it? Like, what's your mental approach to it?
I think like now I have a feeling that it's been worth it. And that's not to say that we've made it, but I think we've come a good way now, where we're like financially stable. And I think like it's been worth it, but it's been a lot of sacrifices, obviously, both on on a personal level, like and also we've lost like a lot of money, like and I haven't, I dropped out of my education with a plan to like come back and finish it, which I've never done, and I think I never will. So there's been a lot of sacrifices, but right now I think it's been worth it. Also because like I can see a future that for the company, and I can see the future for myself in this company, like the private my private life, my family life, and the balance between like working here makes sense. And being like being independent, being your own like founder of your own company, comes with a lot of privileges as well. Like especially when having a family, like I can pick up my kid when I want. I don't have to like ask anyone if I can do anything. So right now I'm at a place where I think it's totally worth it. But yeah, it's been a long journey, and there's been many situations where I've been questioning myself, the company, my place in the industry, and that might happen again at some point. But right now it's I think I'm in a good place.
How's your partner's role in this? Yeah, I know for myself, I'm married and I have kids the same way that you have. What's her opinion been around you guys, that you actually diving into this over time?
Well, even though we've been together a long time, but she knew when she got to know me that music was just like my thing. And I think she quite liked the transition, because we were also seeing each other when I was a musician. So I think first and foremost, she appreciated the change, like from musician to working on this side of the desktop. And she's just been part of the journey. And actually, what I forgot to mention was that she worked for W.A.S Entertainment like for a year, because because she was like in between jobs and pregnant, so she had like so she worked for us like for 9 months or something, where she was handling all our communication. So she's been a part of this journey, but obviously like there has been times where, I had to say to her like, sorry, but there's no money coming in this month, and she might have been a bit dissatisfied. But I think if you want to do this, you need the support from your closest, so that's been very important to me. Yeah,
that makes sense. As a company, you guys have also positioned yourself like quite interesting, let's call it politically, or you have taken a very strong stance against structural sexism in the industry. Can you just tell me a bit about that? What motivated you guys to be very vocal about this whole thing?
I think that was around 2019, 2020, like just in the beginning, and we had signed a lot of non-male artists, not like as a political project, but just that was the music that we thought was good.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of non-male artists signed to our company, and we could see that there was a misrepresentation going on in the industry. It was clear and obvious, like on the radio charts, on the streaming charts, on the festival rosters. So for us, it was kind of a way of supporting the artists that we worked with. We are 3 men founded this company, so it's not, obviously I have my own opinion about how I would like society to look, and I obviously believe, as many others, that like equality should be everywhere, also in the music industry. So I think it just started out as us trying to like help our artists actually getting played on the radio. So how do you do that? I think we did a big quite a big that was just during the pandemic, so it was like a Zoom meeting, like a conference, where we invited the entire industry to like talk about how we could improve the industry in regards to equality and structural sexism. And back then nobody knew about our company, but we invited everyone, and a lot of people decided to show up. And I was I was on the radio in one of the bigger radio shows, discussing with some of the more established parts of the industry, where like a David Goliath situation. So it, in reality, this was just something we did to help our artists, but it became kind of a marketing thing as well. I think people thought that as well, that was like a way for us like branding ourselves. That wasn't the initial thought, but it ended up quite good, because when you're a new company and you're competing with so many established companies, you have to do something to like set yourself apart. And for us to be very vocal about these challenges in the industry just made our name like pop up on people's radar. But we're still continuing like to work with these issues. So yeah, it's just a part of the DNA.
Absolutely. And I think it was, even though it comes from a really real place, I also thought it was really smart. Like I think I've been to concerts of 4 of your artists before, and they were all female artists in those cases, and they're amazing artists, but they also have the sound is also a bit different. Like you guys don't do just normal mainstream pop. There's definitely an edge to it. Right. So having this let's call it political agenda or societal change agenda also resonates with the artist profiles you have. Totally. So for me, it was a really strong brand move.
Yeah, and also just to say one thing, I believe that like the generation, like my generation and your generation and those younger than us are much more aware of these issues than the generations before us has been. So in order to create a company that's actually attractive to younger artists, songwriters, employees, I think you just need to be very clear about your own values. And how can we compete with a major label? We can't really, because we don't have the finance at all. But if we have like the values and we have a community feeling, then we can compete a bit. And that was what we did. So it was also a way for us like just existing.
Yeah, no, and I think that's also in the industry, at least, me being away from Denmark, that's sort of where I feel like you guys position yourself in the industry as like majorly important players because of that move. Yeah. I think that's really interesting. You talked about you guys having the community aspect and stuff like that, but not necessarily the financial availability to be working in that level. Recently, you guys got some more money into the company. Can you tell a bit about what the reasoning was behind that and why you did that move?
Yeah. Well, it started. It was kind of by accident, I think. At some point, we needed a new distributor, or we were searching for a new distributor, and we talked to some of the majors just to hear what their how it could look working with them, and we had a meeting at Sony with their director, and he was very open to working with us. He had been following our artists. This was like in 2021, I think, 2022, and he was very keen to work with us. And then he suggested, how about something about you selling some of your company and getting some more money and then getting some more, like, some experience and some know-how. I hadn't really thought about that, to be honest. I didn't create this company with any kind of exit strategy in mind. It was all very, just trying to create a job in the industry that you like. But at the beginning, I was very much like, not going to happen, because this company was kind of formed in opposition to how the major part of the industry works. But we had talks, and we could see how it could benefit our journey, our company, and our position, selling a minority part of the company. So we did. And obviously it's been one of the very, very important reasons of why we did it as well was we were tired, like us founders of the company were tired of not knowing if we could pay salaries every month. And that, it was very stressful. So I thought that if we sell a minority part of the company and get some cash in, we can build the company. We can build it in a way where we only do things that we really want to do, instead of trying to work with too many artists to try to get some kind of cash flow. Or we at some point we started a booking department just to get some cash flow running, but we never really wanted to be booking agents. So this enabled us to just have financial stability and build the company in the way that we wanted to build it.
Yep. You said at the start, you were very much in opposition to the major labels.
Mm.
What was the change on a like more emotional or value based, your decisions on that? What changed?
I think actually, because of all the talks that were going on regarding the whole Me Too and structural sexism in the industry, I think like the entire industry more or less made it, are like in the process of making a change. So I thought that like working with majors now is way different than I think it was 5 years ago, because I think every company now are way more considerate. Um, and also I just think like I'm getting older and I'm maybe not that black and white anymore. I just think like, because when you are very young and you just like to be in opposition to everything, um, and also like my own experience of being an artist on a major label wasn't that good. So I had just like built this thing up in my head that like all things evil were majors. Um, but to be honest, and this is kind of an unfortunate, but the major industry is so big, so it's like can't beat them, join them thing. Because I think like if we wanted to stay competitive and stay like growing and not just going bankrupt, we needed financial stability, and we needed a partner who could advise us as well. Yeah. So it was really a decision based on a business, but also like accepting that they might not be that evil in real life as I thought.
No, that makes sense, and yeah, I think that's really really important that nuances. Well, there's more nuances when you get older and you see more things.
Yeah.
One of the things that I'm trying to work with is, in general, like changing the relationship with the music industry and private capital. That's going to be a long journey.
Yeah.
And what I'm working on is sort of providing opportunities for being competitive with the major companies, not necessarily through my company, but what I'm working with is large investors that are now venturing into the music space. So hopefully also in the future, if there's companies that also would like an alternative to the majors, because right now there's really no alternative. Like if you wanted to get money in the company, it was one of three companies, right? There wasn't really an alternative.
No. Then it might be like people who just thinks it's cool to say that they own like part of a music company, but not really people with any know-how. So yeah, totally right. It's very limited. Your options are very limited.
Yeah, and that's a long journey, and that's one of the things that I work on. But that's for another podcast, another time. This is really interesting. Like, okay, now you guys have a bit more money. You have some experience now, and then also you have some sort of advisory position from Sony that can help you on more stuff that you need help with. What is the next step in W.A.S Entertainment? What's going to happen?
Actually, it's well, the next step is quite hard to predict. But what we did actually when we sold a minority of the company, we changed everything. So we went from being more or less a 360 company, doing management, label, publishing, booking, to now mainly focusing on artist management and publishing. And we have downsized because back to the thing about like doing what you really want to do instead of what you need to do to keep something running. We decided to like just downsize and focus on our core business, which is obviously management and also publishing, because I think the dynamic between those two things are quite interesting. So right now we're 5 people working here, which is like, because like 1 year ago we were 10, maybe 12 with interns. So I really wanted to downsize and try to find out like what do we actually want to do, and for the future. Because right now we have a fine business running. We're 5 people working here. We have a very successful bands and some very interesting bands on the way. So it's a fine, sustainable thing going on right now. But what I want this company to turn into is actually in the future trying to build like a management agency. Because artist management in Denmark, at least, I don't know how it is in Norway or Sweden, but in Denmark, it's very independent, and it's very much like individual people managing their friend, and not necessarily. It's just very like separated, and not very organized. So I have this vision that it should be a possibility to actually make, like, you have big booking agencies, you have your record labels, that you also could create a management company where you have like a lot of experience, and also the financial in a financial position to hire younger talent and kind of develop them together with the artists and build like a more streamlined professional management agency who can be actual like market leaders. That's kind of my ambition right now. But still, I also think it's important for a management company to have a publishing division, because I think it's very important that you have the elbow space to be deeply involved in the creation of the songs, especially when you're working with brand new artists.
Yeah.
And I also think it's important to have a label set up where you can actually get things started before you sign artists over to a major label, especially if you're working with artists who are not singing in Danish, because then you have the entire world to work with. And if you sign a deal to a Danish major, like your masters to a Danish major, they will only work in Denmark, and you have pretty much no chance of growing your career outside. So trying to build a platform with like management as the spearhead, but have a publishing division, have a label division where you can get things started, get things going, without needing to have like 5 options or stuff like that, but just a platform. That's what I'm trying to build right now. It's gonna take time, but I know that I think it can be done, because I like in the UK and the US, that's what people are doing. Yeah. So that's my ambition now.
No, it's interesting. There's also the kind of like the aspect of short-term income and long-term income. Obviously, in publishing and on masters, there's a more like longer tail where management, potentially that could, end fairly abruptly compared to the other rights.
Yeah.
Is that a part of the equation when you think about these things?
Definitely. Yeah. It's my pension, right? I need to consider that as well. But I also think that many artists today start off by signing a major label deal, because it's become quite cheap to invest in masters, and I do not necessarily believe that the best first step for a brand new artist is to sign 20 songs to a major label, because most often you have 1 or 2 shots, like 1 or 2 singles, and then you're in or out. So like creating a platform, like as an artist manager, I would like to have a platform where I could actually get the career started and higher the value of the project. So at some point you can go to one of the majors and say, well, do you want to do this? And then the contract you get is way better. The advance or the sign-on fee, whatever, is way more significant. And you have the time as an artist to actually find out what do you want to do and have the time to develop. That's important, because I've seen so many artists just like, also we've worked with so many artists where they've wrote 1 or 2 good songs, and then we're like, we have to do it now, and you have to like write an album, and we have to get it out before November, so we can. And we still do that sometimes, because you get caught up and you get excited. But I just think it would benefit all parties actually in the long run if we try to be a little more considerate and a little more like long term in our way of thinking. Artists, yes, like you don't need to release as soon as you have one good song. If you have written one good song, then let's see if we can write 10 more, and then the first one you wrote might be the worst of the bunch, and then you've grown. So that's kind of the philosophy.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, it's been really interesting talking with you, and I think one of the things that I appreciate is that there's a bit of numbers on the table. There's a bit of insight into it, because I think there's a lot of people who could learn from your journey so far, and it's far from over. But now you're at least over the let's call it the initial really tough hurdle, and I really hope that you're gonna make it long term, and I think you will. Like, just looking at what you guys do and the artists you work with, and then the let's call it the how people talk about you, it's just really, really positive. If you were to, I know I'm putting you on the spot, if you were to give an advice to a founder who wants to go in your footsteps, what would you say?
Join forces with other people that you think you would like to work with, because I think so many people are in this industry, because it's tough, burns out quickly, because they put on way too much responsibility on their own shoulders, and they don't have anyone to share the negative experiences, but also the positive ones. So for me, like having my two founding partners with me to share every experience and to discuss every business strategy has definite. I wouldn't have been able to do this alone at all. And I think, so it's way better to like own a smaller part of the company, but then build something sustainable. That's the first advice. And then I think you have to accept that the plan you had in mind will definitely not be like the way things are going to end up. Things are going to change. So we've been talking about like the past 5 years, I think, and we've changed strategy like 10 times, and we've been 12 people here. We've been 5 people here now, and probably if we talk to each other again in half a year, then we're going to be 12 people again. So things are just changing all the time, and I think you need to be very flexible and just accept that things are going to go, definitely not going to be as you expect them to be. And the last thing, which I wish that I had learned earlier, is that it's not the amount of hours that you work. It's how you work when you work. I've been working way too much during the last 5 years. I have been because I thought as a founder of a startup, it's only myself that I'm cheating on when I'm not working. So I've just thought that I have to be at the office from 8 to 6 or 7, and then go home and then eat, and then open up my laptop again at 8 and work until 11. And that's, for me at least, it's not the way to do it, I think. Because you burn out. And the actual hours that you should be working as a normal person, like from 8 to 5 or what it is, it becomes less effective when you work 80 hours a week. So for me, that learning experience of really, just being more effective. I think it came like when I had my son, I was like forced to it, because he needs to get picked up from nursery and stuff like that. So it kind of forced me to just it's not about the amount of hours that you work. I think you have to work a lot, but it's also about being very effective and being very like aware of why you're doing what you're doing. And not forcing yourself into something crazy, because I think that's kind of one of the reasons why people get so stressed in this industry, is because it is a fast-paced industry. It is very competitive. And if you're a founder of a startup, then you also have the money issue. And you're like the only one in charge to solve all those problems. So you just, that's been quite of a learning curve.
That's great. Well, thank you for the advice, and thank you so much for opening up. And I'm very thankful to you in the podcast. And if I do meet an artist that needs a manager in the future, I'm not going to be as skeptic as I was the first time. That's for sure.
Thank you for the good questions.
Yeah, thank you, Jakob. We'll talk probably at one point soon.
We will. Have a good day.
Bye.